This is the 2008 movie Gran Torino. It's directed by Clint Eastwood, written by Nick Snenk, and he's been with Eastwood for a number of years, and also responsible for The Mule, The Mule, which I've just reviewed briefly. So let's get to the cast. Clint Eastwood in the lead role plays Walt Kowalski. Tao, the young Hmong boy, is played by V. Yang, and his elder sister Sue is played by Aini Her. Father Jovanovich, played by Christopher Carley. Mitch Kowalski, the son, played by Brian Haley. Karen Kowalski, played by Geraldine Hughes. And a few others. Trey is played by Scott Eastwood. So what have we got here? So the movie opens and closes with two religious Catholic ceremonies, funerals in fact, reflecting on the lives of two losses in the community. The first, which opens us up, is where we meet Walt Kowalski and his family. Walt's wife has passed on. We get an insight over the first 10 minutes or so of the family and how Walt views them. And it's not particularly positive. He's scathing really of a granddaughter who seems to be just a consumer, and he's very aloof with his son and daughter. Walt's a Korean War veteran. He's retired. He was a Detroit auto worker, and he presents as a bitter, objectionable, argumentative cynic who resents family smothering him with interest at this time in his life following the death of his wife. And he's also not that impressed by the increased attention given by the young local priest, Catholic of course, who'd been asked by Walt's mother to keep a close eye on Walt after she passed. Well, Walt's having none of it. He's a very independent-minded man, resents the increased attention, and is quick to illustrate his views on foreigners. Most of his opinions have stemmed from that stretch as an army member in the Korean War in the 50s. And when he sees new neighbours arriving who are clearly Asian, it tends to stoke up his racist slur on them and describing them as gooks. That's very typical of army talk about that part of the world. And he tends to put Asians all in the same bag. And even when he's made aware that the neighbours are in fact the Hmong, who are a tribal peoples who reside in Laos, northern Thailand and southern China, he still thinks of them as Koreans, although he's not. These agents certainly provoke his twisted, sort of bigoted attitude. We then get introduced to two English-speaking Hmong. Tao, he's a young lad about 16 years age, and his older sister Sue. Now, Walt encounters the boy Tao after an Asian teenage group get him involved in targeting Walt for a possible robbery, and so he's checking out the garage, but Walt's a bit of a sly old dude and he catches him in the act, and he's pretty stern in his condemnation of this, and what follows then is that the family next door become aware of the transgression and feel extremely guilty and want to make amends. And what follows is their attempts to offer gifts, food, etc., to say their apologies. Walt is very reluctant to get involved in any sort of social aspect with them, but the young girl Sue acts as a go-between here because of her English, and eventually Walt becomes less hostile also to the boy Tao, and the offer by the family for Tao to give his labour for free for a period of time to help Walt out is accepted, and the bond between Walt and the boy develops. He also accepts an invitation to a party for the family, which is connected with some cultural event, and this also adds to his mellowness with regard to the family, and he even gets to have a good feed, and the relationship with the girl becomes one of friendship, and it's clear that he is a man who is more than what one first sees. He isn't as bigoted and racist as one sees, and he becomes quite mellow. He's prepared to stand up for the weak, and reserves his worst behaviour for some of the behaviour by the gangs that terrorise the neighbourhood and terrorise vulnerable individuals. A particularly telling scene is when Walt is out driving. He comes to a crossroads and witnesses an incident across the road where Sue seems to be caught up in some problem with an Afro-American gang. Walt, of course, with his military power, intervenes with words and eventually the showing of a handgun, which rattles the group, and he rescues the girl. The impact of the Asian guy, however, Asian gang, which happens later, takes the plot to a new level, and we witness Walt showing his protective nature again when the boy Tao is roughed up by the group, returning from a job that Walt has helped find for him. And this really stirs up Walt, who responds by tracking them down and humiliating the group. They react in a atrocious manner, very much reflective of gangs all across the big cities in America, and they attack the Hong house with automatic weapons, and the residents are very fortunate to escape without any injury. But we then see Sue stagger back, and she has been probably raped and certainly beaten about by this Asian gang. Well, the plot then really goes downhill, really, as Walt, drawing on his military training, slowly prepares his response. And you'll have to watch the movie to witness that part of the plot. I watched this movie a number of years ago, and I really warmed to it. I think it's because Eastwood, in this tough guy stance, who can forget him as Harry Callahan in those San Francisco movies that he made, he just has an aura about him, and even at the ripe old age of 80 plus or whatever, he still commands the screen, and particularly inspiring in this movie his relationship with the boy Tao. He becomes a bit of a father figure, something that perhaps he missed out on earlier when he was so involved in his hobby and his business. And he also becomes a teacher to the young boy. And then there's a fantastic scene midway through when he takes the boy along to his barber, who's also his friend, and we witness the two men giving a sort of lesson on how to be a man, using the type of American slang that is commonplace. This boy does speak English, but he is culturally naive to the American way, and it's a very amusing scene. And secondly, I think the film gives a message that even in old age people can change their views. Certainly Walt, throughout the film, mellows considerably, and his prejudices to an extent are reversed, and his genuineness comes through, and those rigid beliefs soften, and he learns to accept different groups from other parts of the world. And of course the Gran Torino is the immaculate classic car that's parked in his garage, which he actually put together himself whilst at the auto company, which is supposed to be, well, it becomes very significant at the end of the film. But again, you'll have to watch it to work that one out. So overall, an extremely inspiring movie. One of his best, I would say. Gran Torino, directed by Clint Eastwood and starring Clint Eastwood.